We're sitting here today with some guests visiting from other states. We've got Ed Coffey, who brews at Kelly Green. He does their saison sour barrel age program. We've got John Rowley from Rowley Farmhouse Ales in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He shipped us a fantastic box of beer. We're going to open one of his. We have Farmer Ned. He's a local farmer. He grows some grain for some malt companies, and then he also takes a lot of our compost for his farm. I am Nate Walter. I am the head of the barrel program here and lead blender at Freewill. And this is Hannah Gohde. She is a brewer. She helps me out in the sour cellar. She kind of does a lot of everything.
And turn the label out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, so this is a new bottle we haven't actually sold yet. Probably put it up for sale in the next month or so. But it's a barrel aged saison called Brewing with Merlot grapes and dry hop Wisteria Goldings. The last couple of years, I've been really interested in these beer wine hybrids. I think it's like the marriage of the two is just kind of perfect in my opinion.
There
we go. See, nice and warm bottle. All over John's shoes, right?
That's what shoes are for.
You're good with that. You're a brewer. You're used to it.
Okay, I'm not too upset. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's why Bob doesn't wear shoes. Cleans up easier. I don't know how many we have. Do we have the right number?
I brought down a few extra glasses because I didn't know if anybody would be joining us.
That's cool that you brought up beer wine hybrids. Just sort of by circumstance, we have a couple in the works right now. We've got a Grenache grape sour beer that we then did a saison on second use of the grapes. And I think we're going to end up blending the two together for sort of a beer wine hybrid. And then we also just packaged a grape skin sour saison where we took only grape skins and for about a week and a half contact time got a ridiculous purple color, fantastic wine character in this base beer.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. That's definitely something I'm interested in trying out.
Yeah, it was Merlot skins and Muscat.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the tannic nature of the skins will play like perfect.
Amazing.
You get so much character from just.
I was amazed how much wine character we got in such a short contact
You don't
time.
need a lot of it either, yeah. It's not like big fruit where you need 2 to 3, 4 pounds of
No.
fruit per gallon. It's very little.
It was technically 45 gallons of must that I pressed, so it didn't.
Yeah, it's like 1 to 1 or less.
I think each 5-gallon bucket is supposed to get 2.5 to 3 gallons of juice out of it. So.
But the juice went into a different beer.
The juice went into a clean
This
beer
wasn't the
upstairs,
juice.
and
That's
then
very awesome.
and then the skins. It was kind of like we have these great skins. Let's do something with it. So
Yeah, don't throw them out.
Were you using
Yeah.
whole fruit on this or just skin?
This was just must.
Must,
so
okay.
for in a 2 barrels of beer, 1 wine barrel, this is just 10 gallons of must. So it's actually
This is awesome.
not
Oh,
a
it's
huge
beautiful.
Yeah.
huge
This is
thing.
nice. How long are you aging this for?
This beer before it was bottled was 14 months old. So it was in the barrel for about 10, 12 months before I added the must.
2 months on must.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2
that's,
months on
you don't
must,
want too much because you'll.
yeah, it was. I mean,
over-extract
it blew through the must in honestly
doesn't
like
take
2
long.
weeks. Like it was
Yeah.
pretty much finished that quickly. But it's been in the bottle now for about 4 or 5 months. Carbonated to 3 volumes, as you can see, especially up in a cellar temp.
Kind of where it should be.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. I've noticed some of the bottles, when I try to go over 3 volumes, it's
That's
You-
kind of the
yeah.
cap for me, I think. I really would like some of the beers to be 3.5 or whatever, but you can't really do that without like really extended aging times, I think.
definitely, yeah.
Do you guys take into account the residual CO2 at packaging? Do you
I have
guess
not.
or do you measure?
I have not measured it. I do. That's one of the things that keeps me up at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
It's so hard
Yeah.
to deal with that. But if you have the right tools, you can.
Well, we have the carbodoser thing, but it recommends a below 50 degrees or whatever sample, which we don't
Okay.
have it that way. And so I'm kind of extrapolating and guessing when the sample's warmer than that. So I don't know that I'm doing any better by using it than not using it. Pretty much I'm confirming that there's low residual CO2 and then going from there.
Yeah,
we do end up...
have a carbodoser, but sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I mean, all I use is I think it's that from Milk the Funk. There's a calculator.
Okay.
Calculator that at least gets you pretty close.
Get you close.
Takes
Yeah,
into
it's
account the
kind of-
maximum temperature or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're blending it, different barrels of different gravities. it's worked well for me for years. But I'd love to be more precise on it and kind of, like John said, sleep at night a little better. Especially with like whole fruit, where you might get a little bit of chunks in there every so often, a little bit of pulpiness. As far as gushing bottles, it can be kind of tough.
Nobody likes a gusher, but it's one of our.
It's fun though.
It is fun.
What you had was that was perfect. The beer that starts to pour itself. That's kind of what I want.
So,
Sometimes you get
as far as
exposed to
packaging goes and
IPAs,
corking like that, I noticed, Nate, you and Hannah, you guys are doing a lot of cap and cork. What was the reason you guys went to that method? Is there certain beers that you do that?
Yeah, the more long-term sours, just to help keep a little bit more oxygen out.
Yeah.
And some of that tradition, like Canyon does it, it adds to the presentation.
Yeah.
So if you got to pull a corkscrew out, it's more involved to open it, so people get a little bit more out of the whole experience, I think.
I agree,
And that is something we covered the last time we did this, but it's cool to get somebody else's, like...
Yeah, it's definitely a classy finish to the bottle.
Yeah, so the long-term aging. And then with the pawpaw, I did it because more of the presentation, because we anticipated that was going to be a high-dollar bottle, and I wanted to add that to the presentation.
And with how difficult it is to source 500 pounds of pawpaw, it definitely is a special beer.
Right.
There was a lot of labor that went into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a beer that's going to brew itself.
No.
But yeah, I'll give you guys a plug here, because we were smelling that puncheon today, and it smells
amazing.
It smells amazing.
Oh yeah, we got to smell that
tasted
before you
last
leave.
year's beer, which is amazing also. But
pawpaw
the actual
puncheon.
smelling
Yeah,
it
it's
from
awesome.
the puncheon is like, wow, it's heavenly. That's going to be a really good beer.
Yeah, I'm excited to see or taste the difference between last year's batch and
Yeah, because
and
you
this
guys upped
year's.
your fruiting rate. this
Not
year.
only did we up the fruiting rate, but the type. I mean, last year a lot of it was underripe, and this
Okay.
year everything is ripe and maybe just ever so slightly overripe, which for producing this type of stuff is ideal. So I'm really excited to see how it's going to change from this year to next year. Plus, just the idea of different growing years too. So
And different sources.
Different
Exactly.
sources,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it should be.
definitely.
It's a wet year, and it's that time of year now, right? So you guys are starting to source a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, so a lot of our fruit that we use tends to be more summer crops. So cherries, plums,
Stone fruits.
peaches, stone fruits, exactly.
Okay.
I don't know necessarily the exact reason behind that, other than they're plentiful and the price is generally right for them.
Well,
so-
particularly overripe stuff. Farmers already lost its market to it, so
Yeah.
it's perfect for brewing.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
good amount
it's-
of what we got of the
Yeah.
plums and or peaches and nectarines and white peaches was they were labeled as seconds.
Yeah, seconds,
they were
yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
but that's how they were labeled. They were
And
just a little bit
even-
You got
bruised
so
or
much more sugar out of it.
Yeah.
It's all coming to the fore
Yep.
then. Yeah.
Even a couple years ago, one of the local orchards got hit with a hailstorm, and they had all these wonderful peaches, but they couldn't sell them because they were bruised. So
Yeah.
we got them for pretty much next to nothing. Actually, that's when we got these fruit crates that we're sitting on.
It's a nice share.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
That's cool.
there's a bunch of beer in front of us. Do we want to get a dump bucket, or do you guys want to drink full glasses
Let's drink them.
or
This
pour
one
less?
I'll
Okay.
take.
Yeah.
It's very-
Yeah, I mean this is awesome. This is good.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about these beer wine.
Yeah,
hybrids.
that's
I
a
see a
great-
lot of people doing it. It's really always piqued my interest. Another one I did with Cayuga grapes, which is not really like the
So-
sexiest.
No, because
Wine
Cayuga
grape?
is a
it
North
Ohio?
American grape.
Is it
Yeah,
Ohio?
it's that I actually got
Is
it
it
from a
Ohio?
winery in New Jersey. I bought grapes from the winery in New Jersey, and
There's
that
a
was
little-
all he was willing to sell me last year. But I tried out that one with Vic's Secret. So that's kind of this line of beers. Barrique will be a different grape and a different hop each time.
Oh,
try
cool.
it out. But Vic's Secret, is a pretty interesting hop.
Did you say what this is Vic Secret?
This is steering
Or-
goals.
okay, I'm
yeah,
sorry,
This is a little more, trying to
don't
go a little
listen.
more
More
earthy,
traditional.
but yeah, a little more traditional. Where
see it.
Cayuga, it kind of is a very fruity hop,
Okay.
but it's more of a blending. I'm sorry, grape. It's more of a blending grape.
It's fruity, and it's interesting because at first look you think this is going to be like stripping the enamel off my teeth and being
No,
sour. It's not that.
it's-
Yeah,
at
it's-
all.
It's very drinkable.
It's
I'm
very,
Yeah.
very
And
drinkable.
And we were talking about it earlier. I mean, using 30 IBUs to kind of restrain your culture a little bit, and that's usually where I'm at, the 25 to 30 IBU range, with a good amount of aged hops in this one. That kind of keeps my culture from getting overly sour. It's worked pretty well for these beers. And I don't really want it to be enamel stripping.
No, yeah.
It's supposed to be a beer you can actually drink and enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, overly sour beers and that tend to not be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, without having spoken about it with you guys before, I assume we're kind of in the same boat where we want beer that still tastes like beer, still has to have that certain level of hops to still be beer, have that bitterness to it, and not be abrasively sour.
Right.
I mean, I can drink a sour beer, but my preference is more in that realm of saison with a little bit of tartness to it, rather than a full-blown sour beer.
Yeah.
No,
The
I
two
agree
would
with
mean
that.
we're releasing both this beer and Cayuga and Vic Seeker at the same time. They'll be the two bottles from this year.
Gotcha.
One and
Each
two.
year. Yeah, so I got the must for this year from Bellevue Winery that I'm picking up next weekend. It's going to be Cayuga and I forget the other grape. It was a red grape. But each year we'll do two. We'll just do two every fall.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I do a beer like this too, but it's a small batch, one barrel at a time. We call it If You Must.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, I
We
like
got
that.
the name from a local guy that comes to our place a lot. He suggested the name, so I wanted to honor him with that. He was a good kid. He is a good kid.
I was like, is he,
Yeah,
he
I wasn't
didn't
sure
die.
what I was doing. I'm like, oh,
Is he no longer with
No,
us?
Oh, no.
he's a good guy.
Should we press him out for a homie? I
Yeah,
wasn't
really.
sure.
Yeah.
I misrepresented that, but yeah. So I do like a mixed fermentation Berliner Weiss, which is a little weird. I do my normal Berliner Weiss,
Which you just won.
which
at
one? Yeah,
GABF.
GABF. So we use that base
Congratulations.
beer. Thank you. And we do we barrel age it with some Brett from BSI, the Brux Vardre, which is one of my favorites. I know Ed likes it
Yeah,
from
it's a
our
great
time on
beer.
Dope the Funk. So that's not quite the same as a normal Berliner Weiss. But then we add must to it. But what I usually do is get a fresh barrel of whatever wine I get. The first one was a Chardonnay barrel, I think, and then we use Merlot must. So we do like a dichotomy
Oh, yeah.
type of thing where
That's
we
pretty cool.
have the red must, white barrel, or white barrel, or vice versa.
Red barrel,
And
white
yeah,
barrel.
so we're on our third one now, which is pretty cool. They take a while to make, but
And it's probably easier to source different red barrels versus white because Chardonnay is
Chardonnay is
The
pretty
typical-
ubiquitous. They're probably
the
available
typical,
all the time.
white oaked, but a lot
Yeah,
of
I
a
think
lot
the
of
last one
whites
was Gruner Veltliner Lees from a winery in New Mexico called Vivac,
Okay.
which is a really good local winery. They're really cool, great product, and they grow that grape, which is a unique grape, Austrian grape, I think it is. And we did that in a red barrel. I think it was Merlot barrel. So that one was good. I liked it. I mean, these beers tend to do well, I think.
With the
As
grape.
all.
With
Yeah,
the
the
grapes.
grape
I totally agree.
and mixed fermentation sour beers.
Mhm.
They're a very nice combination. I think a lot of people have caught on to that, and that's why we're seeing more of them.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of anything that uses grapes. I actually did my master's thesis on weather and wine grapes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And looked at 2 different vineyards and growing seasons and climate patterns and stuff. So
What were the two vineyards? Are they local or are they?
yeah, so one at the time was not a commercial vineyard. They have since become a commercial vineyard, but they were Hallbrandts, or it is Hallbrandts. And then the other one is Hauser Estate Winery, which, if you guys are familiar with Jack's Hard Cider, they are the
Yeah.
ones that produce Jack's
Yeah.
Hard Cider as well.
Cool.
So straight line, they're less than a mile apart, but very different topography. So it was really interesting to see.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cool. What was your biggest takeaway from analyzing both?
Well, so based on the topography, Hauser is much more of the traditional south-facing slope, and Hallbrandts was sort of shaped like a saddle. So it was interesting to see the difference in mostly the sugar content between the two, and just how different. And I
That's
used the
pretty
same
cool.
varietals, so it was Chambourcin and Vidal Blanc. They were the only two varietals that both vineyards had more than like just one row of.
Right.
So unfortunately, they were both hybrid grapes. I would have loved to have used something like straight Merlot or Cab or Chardonnay, but they didn't have enough to to use.
And it
You need
includes
enough to have the right
sugar
amount of data.
content in terms of how much was exposed to how much sun for how long during the day.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
I
what-
was
pretty cool.
measuring temperature, soil moisture, relative humidity, and precipitation, and then I could model the way the sun was hitting it just based on computer models. So
That's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
That is neat.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool.
You're also taking me back a number of years.
Yeah.
Trying to remember some of this stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're starting
yeah,
to talk
so
about that kind of stuff at Parliament. Literally on my farm with different hillsides and streams and whatnot, we're talking about how we're probably going to be able to derive different flavors from different hillsides,
Totally.
different areas on the farm, even within just a small area. So brewers are going to start talking about terroir as much as winemakers do at some point.
And it's already
Yeah.
picked up right now with local fruit,
Yep.
local culture as far as yeast goes. Like Farce and Maine's a good example where they forage a saison yeast strain locally and then use that strain basically the whole year,
Yep.
and then do it again the next year. Forage a strain from maybe somewhere different. They do trials and pick the one. So that's a good example of that local terroir.
Yep.
Our spontaneous beers get the local yeast that we pick up in the cool ship, and then whatever fruit we do may influence that blend of yeast and bacteria in the bottles too.
Yeah, that's what's kind of exciting to see what. It's almost like Christmas morning when you're talking about opening the barrel and how that smells. Like, how exciting does it get each time you crack that open, knowing that every year is going to be different too. And that's the exciting part about some of
That's
those
very
beers.
exciting because
I
that
agree.
We do not want that homogenized. I want the same beer, same taste everywhere I go. No, I want to taste something different in the next town over, let alone right here.
And to that point, that's something I think we can all agree on. When we're sampling beers in barrels like this, it's fun to see the difference in each barrel. We're not necessarily wanting every barrel to taste the same. You want it, like that
You know, you
palette
need-
to
you
paint
need
from,
a diversity
to
to
blend.
make
To
it,
build
make these
depth
blends.
and
exactly,
complexity.
yeah.
For
And
sure.
sometimes you don't know if that barrel is destined for Peachy McPeach Face or some other,
Right.
like, things like that. Like, it kind of tells you that that's where it wants to go.
If you think
And
about it,
it's-
the barrel's almost like a living organism because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
got
Yeah.
microbial life in there. So each time it's going to produce something a little bit different for you than this barrel, like that barrel.
and it's breathing, and the
Yeah, some
different
barrels
temperature changes.
are also pretty gross. They gotta go.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's,
that
it's
one's not
one of the
good.
things when so I end up doing a lot of the tours here. And I used to do them every Saturday, but now I don't work Saturdays except for tomorrow. But when I do a lot of the tours and I'm explaining to people some of the differences between clean and sour beers, I tend to compare a lot of it to wine because there are a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities in there, especially for somebody that maybe is more of a wine drinker and isn't as familiar with this. But one of the things that I say is, and this brings an example from my personal life, but my husband is an engineer, so he's very black and white, right angles, right and wrong type of thing. And I'm much more of the la 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 la, let's go tiptoeing through the daisies.
No
and
way.
chase butterflies type of person. So for somebody that has that very structured mind, having a sour can sort of take them outside of their comfort zone sometimes. And I think for me, one of the really cool things is comparing vintage years, just like you would with a bottle of wine.
Yep.
And Ollie is a great example, which we have sitting on the table, but comparing Ollie from 2015, 16, and 17, it's going to be different each year.
Yep.
I think that that's really cool, and I'm pretty sure all of us sitting here think
Oh,
that's, for me, that's one of the things that draws me into
You gotta go.
the world of sours. But for some people, that's, they want something that's going to taste the same each and every time. So.
My wine drinking
That's
friends
like a Bud Light drinker, though.
Yeah, or it's somebody that really likes Craggle, and
Yeah, whatever
that's
the-
what they're used to
them to the
drinking.
next
Every
level.
They
single
want
time
that
Something like this,
familiarity. They know what they're getting
Yeah.
into. That's comforting to a lot of people.
Every time they crack open a can of Craggle or get
the
a
same
draft
thing.
pour, it should taste the same. And people
With a beer like
people
that,
enjoy
making it the same every time is important.
Right.
With beers like this, it's
complete opposite end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
bring
Kind of the
diversity to
opposite
difference.
goal. I
Yeah.
mean, not, but like within the same vein, but not exactly the same.
Right.
And,
Right.
Yeah.
it's tough working with Brettanomyces. It's never going to really behave the same way every
Yeah.
time.
My actual, so I can never remember what Nate's actual title is.
Yeah, I can't either.
So,
I hit it pretty close today, but I can't remember what it is.
I think it's Barrel
Lead
Program
blender
Manager and
and
Lead Blender.
Yeah,
Barrel Program Manager and Lead Blender. That's
something-
what it is. That's what you have written on
it
your
might be
board.
flipped, but that same thing.
Anyway, so what I normally explain Nate's title as is I don't know. He's the barrel tamer. That's what I call him. I don't really know what his actual title is.
Barrel.
Pretty
I've
accurate,
never
really, 'cause
actually
you are-
tamed them, but you
And-
keep
You're
track.
Yeah,
attempting to.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ed said something earlier that I thought was significant is the beer speaks to us. It tells us when it's ready. I rely almost solely on sensory. Whatever this beer tastes and smells like, I'm not trying to design something to taste a certain way. I'm taking something that exists and reacting to it. So the beer tells me whether it wants to go towards a fruit direction and then what fruit, or if it wants to go towards a dry hop, or however, and I kind of react to what the beer is starting to tell me, where everything upstairs is much more, we want these flavors, we're going to do this to it.
You can set a path for the beer on a clean
Yeah.
beer.
How many
For a
times
mixed
are you
fermentation
asked,
beer, it's tough to
when's it
do.
going to be ready?
Oh yeah, it's well.
that is
John
not
asked
good.
me earlier, how long does it stay in this foeder? Till it's ready. That's
Right.
that's always the answer, or till it's nearly ready.
I
And we
know a lot
try
of
and have
people
it.
ask, how do you know? Like when you kind of, it's from, it's just from tasting different beers, trying friends' beers and tasting what they did, and, trying your different barrels and tasting them. And then sometimes you think it's good for a certain fruit, and you go that path, and you're like, actually, maybe that wasn't the best path for it, and sometimes you gotta, like John said, dump the barrels that are crappy and
Bad barrels, yeah, they
cut a
let
good
go.
cut a loss. Yeah.
Well, they make for good decoration.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Put them outside.
Yeah, these are all empty. They're all fake.
yeah.
I mean, all this discussion just reminds me, my wine drinking friends are always offended when I say this product is as sophisticated as any good wine. And it's true.
It definitely is.
And just this discussion kind of highlights that, is that everyone's a little bit different. It's very organic in terms of every bottle is going to be different, every year is going to be different, every vintage is going to be different, and that's the fun of it. It really
I think
is.
a lot of people may not agree with you if they're big wine fans. They may not agree with you because they think of beer not as this type of product. They think of beer as,
They think
BMC,
the IPA,
big
how
beer.
hoppy.
Right.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a sophisticated
Beer
product, though.
has a history of a more blue collar history.
Yep.
There you go.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's tougher for it to get up
Yeah.
and over into the
Yep.
But where that
upper echelon of
change happened, I don't know, because if you look back historically, they were both. I mean, both beer and wine were. I mean, they
They're
were
on the same
yeah,
path,
they
yeah.
were on the
It's
same
Yep.
same level with each other.
I think this is
so-
more like a prohibition type of
I
thing.
was gonna say
Yep.
the same
Yeah.
thing.
Like when
Yeah.
prohibition happened, things changed dramatically in this country, and beer became very homogeneous. It's like all the same beer for 50 years.
Commoditized and homogenized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you
I
guys
have-
are
That's
changing
probably
all that.
what
That's what's cool.
Yeah.
I have a few
What caused it.
friends that are, two friends that are sommeliers, certified. It's an intense exam, but and they love sours, and 100% are in that same mindset as we are. That there are a lot of similarities, and that.
I'll tell you a funny story. A master sommelier told me he was jealous of brewers because they have so much more to work with in the sour beer world than he does. I'm not going to drop his name or anything because he'll probably be pissed at me. But he's a very well known man, and he knows his shit inside and out. He was like, "You guys are so lucky." I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, you can do this so much more with beer than we can with wine.
That's a great clip. If we can use that, that's a great soundbite.
Really.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Maybe repeat that.
You want it closer?
Yeah.
Is it
Okay,
not
I-
picking us up good?
It is,
Oh, no.
but I don't want it to have, when it's farther away, you're going to get more interference.
Yeah.
And if something like that I can use, I don't want to have it. Also,
Right after John
good.
says his thing, let's open his bottle.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so are you have to run out the door immediately,
No,
or
no. I'm gonna hang. I want to at least
Okay.
stay for another bottle
Okay.
before I go. Yeah.
3:45.
All of a sudden, that schedule
No, I
a
mean,
little fluid.
it's. I have to be there by 5:45. Honestly, it's not.
Where do you have to go?
He has to
Cherry
pick up.
Hill, but it took me an hour
Pick
and
up the
45
kids.
minutes to get there.
Friday, yeah, it's not
And
gonna
Yeah,
be
just
fun
no,
to
I-
get
It
to
could be
Cherry
a 2
I just didn't. I
hour
didn't
plus
know.
drive. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I might even just bypass the city and go to the Turnpike.
All right, so we'll talk about this beer, which we called mixed doubles curling. At the time we brewed this, it was the Winter Olympics, and we were coming up short on a name, so we were watching curling, which is actually really cool. And I was like, doubles, yeah, this is a Belgian double. Well, supposed to be a Belgian double. It's a Belgian double base that we used our mix culture on, and then we fermented it in rum barrels for a long time. I think it was 15 months in rum barrels. Rum barrels are kind of iffy because they usually have a lot of wood, a lot of flavor extracted from them already. The rum guys use them over and over and over.
Hard, man.
Yeah, they use them hard. They ride them hard, put them away wet.
I knew that was coming.
Or they put them away dry. Yeah, they're very dry. They're bone dry when you get them. But I think these were pretty good ones. And then we aged the resulting beer on plums for 3 months afterwards. And then we bottled it. So it was about 15 months. No, about 18 months at the time of bottling. So patience, it takes time, right?
I've been
Nice.
very, 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 very anxiously awaiting trying this beer.
Had a nice sound opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you fight the squirrels for these plums?
These are not squirrel plums. I'll you missed that story. So there's a guy I know that has plum
where it
trees,
was. Might have been in here.
and he's very generous. He likes to give me the plums. In the past, he gave the plums away to other people. He was making he was getting people to take plums to make pies, and there was a guy making wine with it for a while. He was kind of a half-assed guy, nice guy, but he just didn't know what he was doing. But at one point, he just stopped giving people the plums, and he's like, "Hey, do you want some plums?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want all of the plums. Every plum that you can give me, I will take." And so before that, he had a year where he had great plums. So plums in New Mexico are hit or miss. We get a lot of hail in the spring, and if we get hail in the spring, all the flowers will get chewed up, and then you won't get any plums that year. So this was not one of those years. This was a nice year, and he was getting ready to pick all the plums off the trees, but he decided he was going to take a trip to Albuquerque. For him, he was like 2 hours away, so 2 hours driving, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, something like that. He went to Costco, did his shopping routine, whatever, and he comes back and all the plums are gone from his trees. So he's freaking out. He's like, "Who the fuck came over and robbed me?" Because he's a real paranoid guy. He has like a bunker, and
Okay, yeah.
he's one of those prepper types.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a nice guy, but he has
He's got
Conspiracy
issues.
theorist.
he's got he listens to a lot of Alex Jones kind of stuff. Weird, yeah, weird
Finally,
shit.
you woke up Travis.
Yeah, weird shit. But he has a whole property video camera system that records on a DVR. So he went back and he checked the video. And what do you know? This troop of squirrels came in and picked his trees clean in 6 hours. They took every plum off of these 6 to 8 trees or whatever. And then he was like, "Yeah, I don't have any plums for you this year. They're all gone."
So disprove that conspiracy theory, huh?
Yeah.
I'm excited to drink this beer with
Yes.
you.
This is pretty marvelous.
Well, thank you guys for having us.
Plums
Cheers.
are-
This is really interesting because it starts out sour, but I guess is it the rum on the back end that just cools it down almost immediately?
Probably, without being hot and boozy though. It's not alcohol. It's more
Even though it's
vanilla caramel.
It's a bigger beer, though. I
Again,
think-
without being obviously
I
vanilla.
can't remember
or
the
caramel.
ABV, but it's something like
It's not syrupy,
7, 8?
sugary at all.
8.5, so it's a fairly larger
No,
beer.
but it's got good malt
So
complexity
good.
to back it up.
Yes.
It plays well with the acidity.
Yeah, because that's pretty acidic. It's 3.6. You say
Okay.
That's
3.6, but the TA is something that will tell you more. The TA is only 7.2 grams per liter, so that's a lot less.
okay.
So, so I like to use TA as a good number for measuring the overall acid profile. So it's the bound acids versus the unbound acids.
Okay.
So an unbound acid would be the proton concentration in solution, and that would be the pH, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So normal.
We're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically any other acids, organic acids, things that are in the beer naturally, that are bound to other complexes and sugars and proteins and things like that, they don't come out in pH. It's just not part of the measurement. So it's almost like IBUs in beer, where we can calculate through multiple calculations how much IBUs are in this beer, but in reality, the old math, I think they've started to fix this, but the old math doesn't account for partial isomerization in Whirlpool editions and stuff like that. So pH is a similar way. It's only part of the picture. So if you measure TA, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but I think it's worth it, it gives you an overall acid profile. So a really big beer has a lot of acid in it would be over 10.
Okay.
I think we were talking about 14 was the most that you had heard of. I had a guy came and asked me to measure one of his beers. It was 19. It was like,
Whoa.
it was painfully high.
Can you, real quick, tell the kids at home what TA is?
So TA is titratable acidity. It's also referenced as total acidity, but it's not really, total acidity is not the right term. It's the amount you can titrate out. So the method for determining TA is fairly easy. You have a pH meter, you put it in a solution of beer, and you use I can't remember what it is, a 0.01 molar sodium hydroxide solution, and you stir it while adding the solution in it dropwise until you hit a pH of 8.2. And then once you have the number of milliliters of the solution that you put in, you can calculate the TA fairly easily.
You don't need a lot of lab equipment to be able to do it.
Now you can do it with a dropper
Yeah.
We
or a
have those-
syringe,
we have the
and
ability to do it.
yeah,
We did
you
it
can
in
do
high
it with a
school.
syringe of solution. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all you need.
So how do you get your TA as low as you do with the pH of that, as low as that is as well?
Well,
Is that the
that
barrel, or is that something else?
it could be
Culture
barrel. I
dependent,
think it's a multiple. It's probably a series of things. Yeah, I mean, it's this beer has acid, but it's not super acidic.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is smooth and well balanced. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's,
Looking at those numbers, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the reason I like to put the number on the bottle is,
To surprise people.
well, no, but it gives you more information.
Yeah.
So you can get once over time you learn, oh, okay, 10 grams is a lot. 5 grams is not so much.
Because I've been in places where they'll list what the pH is, and if I saw 3, I don't want that. I'm not going to try it.
Right.
Too low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, too low. I mean, some breweries do just pH. I know Jester King puts pH on their bottles.
I think a Funkatorium has
They might have done
pH.
it.
Yeah.
I know that I've only seen TA on 1 or 2 other bottles.
Interesting.
I'm
and
not
it's
trying
the
to say
more
I'm-
it's the more geekier milk.
It's definitely a
funk
geekier
guys.
thing, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm a science geek,
Yeah,
so
TA,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm definitely a science geek, so it's a fun
Yeah.
thing for me to do.
Yeah, I think
That's awesome.
I think pH is probably used more commonly just because it's something that
Oh, yeah.
people are more familiar with.
Yeah.
I mean,
People use it all the time in
Right.
brewing for mash.
and just in life in general.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Everyone
it's-
will understand.
Someone has a
pH.
pool.
In
They
farming,
have
we
an
look
idea.
at pH of the soil, but what's
Right.
really more important is cation exchange capacity. So I'm thinking, as you're talking about TA, I'm thinking about that more along the same line. It's the same thing, but it's more about the
Yeah.
efficiency of how minerals and fertility gets taken up into a plant.
Right.
So pH doesn't matter as much as cation exchange capacity. So
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels in
Yeah.
all these things that we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I always joke around and say, you know, I have 2 degrees and I don't really use either one of them. I ended up brewing beer for a living. But here we are
Only in
talking
America,
about all
right?
this
It's the
stuff.
beautiful
and-
thing, right?
Yeah.
it can be anything you
So,
want.
It's not always an obvious connection from, you know, my education to what I do now, but they're there.
But it is. It
I
is.
have no
Life-
degrees
Yeah.
and I use it every day.
Life is not a straight road.
It's
No, it's
It's
not.
definitely not a
It's
straight
not.
road.
Thank
You're
God,
never going to
'cause
end
I
up where
never
you thought you would.
No, I wouldn't have ended up here if it was a straight road.
Well, I mean, I think beer is one of the things that brings everyone together.
Beer unites us. That's
Yes.
my,
Here's
that's,
democratic small
yeah.
d. It just
Yeah.
it's very equalizing. I love it.
Yeah, it
John,
is equalizing.
The base double, is this all malt, or are you using any candy sugar? in this?
I don't think we
Color?
used candy sugar at all. I think we've only made 1 beer with candy sugar, and that was last like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's definitely not a beer that's ready yet.
Yeah.
So the homebrewers, I will tell you as a whole, especially in Belgian Abbey style, Trappist style brewing, they love to use candy syrup, candy
I
sugar.
know. It's expensive.
Yeah, as a brewer,
That's crazy.
professional brewer, I look at this and be like, holy shit, that's fucking expensive. So I don't buy much sugar. I mean, sugar itself is cheap.
Right,
Beet
yeah.
sugar you can probably get for unbelievably low prices. But typically I don't use it.
Okay.
And I just go for the malt.
So you said you did 1 barrel of this. Do you
Well,
have
that's
people
3 different barrels of this blended together.
standing in line for this?
No,
Or is-
no, I've got no lines.
I don't get people. I really don't.
Yeah, well, I think that's
It's a
part
little
of
bit
my
where,
marketplace.
where you are also.
Yeah,
I
my
mean,
marketplace is not. We're kind of still in the beginning of growing a sour beer culture in New Mexico.
Yeah.
We're getting there. People are catching on.
Are there many other breweries in New Mexico making mixed fermentation beer?
No,
or
no.
kettle
There's
sours
one.
even?
Yeah, there's a lot of kettle souring. A lot of people will do that because they have a clean brewery and they don't want to. They don't have the space to do the sour beer manufacturing.
If you had this as your first sour, this would ruin you because it's just so good, so smooth. Every sour after that would be way too harsh. That would.
It's
be
it's a very round beer,
Yes,
which I'm very happy about
yes,
that.
yeah.
And so plums are probably my favorite fruit to use in beer in general, but definitely in sours. And it's always so surprising the flavor profile that it produces compared with what a fresh plum tastes like, because I don't
They're
think
completely
that they
different, yeah.
are
Different.
at all
Yep.
similar. But every plum beer has that underlying flavor profile, and I love it.
Fermented
I love
plum, yeah, it's a good thing.
I love it so much.
Was
Yeah,
it worth
it's a-
the wait all day?
Yeah.
Plum,
Or
for
like-
us, plums are
or
easy.
how many months ago did we meet? And I think it was shortly after.
It was
that
soon
that
after
you
that he
released
posted he
this,
was bottling it or something like
and
that,
then you tagged me in it on Instagram.
and that's when we sent a box out to make sure that we
Yeah.
got some in return.
Yeah.
So I was gonna be really disappointed if there was not a bottle of this in that box.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I got the bottle because
That
You probably remembered that.
I think I remembered
was
vaguely.
March, right? That was March.
Who knows?
March, yeah.
Yeah.
So when was this released?
I don't know if the dates are on it, but it was. I think we bottled it soon thereafter.
I think it was bottling and not
yeah.
release. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think we have a date on the
So
bottle.
let's just say it was April.
Yeah, it's probably around April.
So 6 months, right? I've
Mm-hmm.
been waiting for this. Thank you for finally making my dreams come true.
Life gets busy, and I never forgot that I owed you guys beer.
That's not what I'm just. That's not.
Okay.
That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying.
Okay, I'm glad that you got
worth
it.
the wait.
Excited.
Once it piqued her interest,
She's
She
been on
kinda
Christmas Eve now for
has been
6
looking
months.
So we do have more plum beer coming out. I'll make sure that you get them sooner. Okay.
As do
I'll
we.
send you more beer.
I'll promise. Well, that works for me too.
Well, that was the first thing I saw when we opened this box. I was like, "Holy shit, we owe you some beer." I don't remember what we sent, but I'm sure it was not a full case
No,
of 750s.
you guys are fine. It's
I
fine.
don't remember. I know we sent.
Well, you sent
We
a
sent
very
a
healthy
good
box.
amount. We sent
so,
some good beer, but it was not a full case of 750s. That's for sure.
You guys were. Thank you for your patience.
Oh.
But
I just
6
was
months in the
excited.
bottle was probably worth the wait. It probably is better off for it at this point.
I think so. I think the longer the beer sits in the bottle to a certain point, I don't know.
Right.
As a younger brewery, I don't know what that point is.
What will happen with this 6 months from now?
I hope it will get even better. Yeah. I don't know. At some point, it's going to start degrading. You can't avoid that, right? That's nature. Entropy gets everything.
But so the game
I
is
live with
to
entropy.
Yeah.
the game is to
Yeah.
get it in the bottle before it peaks.
Right.
So that it peaks whatever 2 months after release or something
Right.
like that, or it never peaks and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And that's the game where we try and hit that balance. Like we
Some
want to
beers
release,
definitely will improve like throughout their lifetime.
yeah, we want to
Unbelievable.
release beers that are ready to drink at the time because you
Right.
know customers are going to do it. You want to have it on tap at the same time you sell the bottles, whatever. But we also want something that's going to be shelf stable. We put 5 years on most of our sours. So we want to. We don't even know at this point if it's going to be good in 5 years. But based on our experience with other beers and things, we know what we're putting into it is most likely good enough for 5 years. But maybe it's good for 10, or maybe it's better between 5 and 10 years. We just really don't know.
We don't know. As a whole, I don't think we know all of that yet. Unless you're Sam Calgione, then he knows that his 120-minute IPA is going to be good for 20 years.
Or not.
We've also had
He does the
our sour program
advertising.
going
And that's
for
true,
about
too.
5 years,
Yeah.
so we can go back.
You have a lot of
to-
data, yeah.
Yeah, we can go back to some of our first original release bottles and taste. I mean, our bottling practices have changed, improved. So.
And everything across the board, our from base
Yeah.
brewing to barrel management to everything, has probably improved in that same time as well.
And it all depends on the base beer you're talking about with the 5 years too. I mean, I remember you gave me a barrel-aged Vitor like 3 years ago, and that at the time was like 4 or 5 years old.
It could have been right.
And I sat on it for a year
Yeah,
before I had it.
yeah.
And you're like, it probably is like a little bit past its time. Still great beer, but I don't know. A year prior, it might have been better. I have no
Right,
idea. But,
right.
yeah, it's kind of hard to tell when that time is going to be, unless you're, you come and you buy 6 bottles and you drink it one
Well,
every year.
that's
for
what
6
I
years. So
that's what I try and encourage people to do is buy multiple bottles so you drink one fresh. Then you can say, oh, I just love this beer. I'm just going to drink them all.
And that's
Or,
fine,
or you
yeah.
say, I'm going to sit on the next one, open the next one a few months later, and then gauge based on that how frequently you open them. And some of them you may sit on for years. And I'm sure I've got beer in my cellar. I'm sure you do too. That's way past its prime.
Oh, yeah,
We probably all do.
We all do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're
just
looking
don't-
for the
you
perfect
don't
moment
always
to
know.
open that, and then before you know it's 5 years past, and you're like, well, I think I
Yeah.
missed my mark on that
Your
one.
palate is overly ambitious.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
exactly.
realize that.
Shit.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't actually drink that much beer at home.
I don't either. I drink.
I rarely drink at
Beer
home.
too
Well,
at work, and
I
that's
live
it.
with 2 dogs, so I mean, they don't like beer,
Yeah.
so I can't feed them beer. So I have to drink it myself.
I drink a lot of scotch at home.
Yeah, I drink other things.
Yeah.
at
Do
home
you have
a
more
lot.
beer or more scotch at home?
That's a good question. I probably more beer, but we do have a lot of scotch at home.
If you've got a few minutes yet, I want to pop this bottle
Yeah, let's do
while
it.
you're
Yeah.
still
And
here.
after this, I'll probably
Yeah.
get going.
If I could get that opener. And this is going to jump out in the right way.
We'll save that one for Hannah then. An extra glass here.
Yeah.
All right. I will turn that down.
What? No fight back?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he was saying he was going to jump out, but you poured it expertly there.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it might
That
be.
was the perfect pour.
Not the way I opened it and just stood there and watched it.
Almost like you've
Even
done
with
this
the
before.
warning.
A little
This is
bit. I've
probably
been-
gonna
It's probably going to
gush.
gush, then all of a sudden,
Oh,
whoa,
hey, that's
wait.
happening.
And I'm just standing here going like this.
I've been opening beers like this for a few years.
That's why my fancy football team's name is the Saison Creep.
Nice.
That's pretty good. And I've had people call me that.
Yeah. Because we're all creeps and
Wait, you're saying
used
your
to
license
bottles
doesn't
like
say
this.
that though.
That guy's the Saison creep, isn't he?
Yeah.
I hear it like
Types of creep, Nate.
I hear it in the
Different types of
background.
creep.
Like there's that Saison creep. Look out! Guard your barrels. This one.
Guard your
Don't
barrels.
call him the dread guy.
No one called me.
I call you
He
the
might
dreaded
infect your
one.
barrels.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone's called me the Saison creep. I mean,
No.
it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't.
I have
But
to
would
say
you be
though, you
insulted?
guys have a really cool, like not just here. Here is exceptional everywhere. This whole area has like a saison culture.
Yeah.
does.
So I blame or credit whatever. I think Mackenzie's had that those 4 years that they got gold 3 years in a row, or 3 of those 4 years. I had nothing to do with those beers. I think that kind of laid the groundwork. And then with Tired Hands, somebody else in that same time frame, local, won a Saison medal. And then
Okay.
Sly Fox has their grisette that often medals. I think there's a really good culture, and among the sort of old-time Saison guys, we're aware of that. We're aware of that sort of what goes on here. And then Jared has continued that at Forest and Maine, and elevated it. So I just, you're right. This area has had such a great amount of Saisons coming out of here. I don't know if it has to do with the farming history in the area or whatever. It's like,
It's
Even
very
just
cool.
The Belgian beer tradition in this
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. There's such a rich beer culture here in general, and we're able to get beers from all over the world that you just can't.
Yeah, you
get
guys have great
elsewhere.
distribution here.
So,
Fantastic.
You can
I
kind of,
think-
you can probably with Saison, it's the story you're talking about, of course, with Vitor. But you can probably talk mostly about monks being the reason why a lot of
And
people
that-
in this area.
and
are
yeah,
big
you're probably
It
right.
was
Yep.
a craft beer
Belgian
movement.
beer.
We had monks for decades.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had Saison DuPont as the first Saison I loved, and then I had Vitor, and I'm like, whoa, this is like an American version of it that is
Yeah.
just as good,
That's-
if not better.
It's not better, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you end up going to Monks and you're exposed to all this Belgian beer, maybe not from here, but kind of inspired people like Jared, I'm sure,
Absolutely.
and yourself. But it's kind of, I think a lot of it stems back to Tom Peters opening Monks. I mean, how,
Yeah.
how long has
I
that
think
place been
you-
open
yeah,
for
you guys
at
are
this
right.
point?
I would definitely.
They just had an
agree.
anniversary, didn't they? Did they have a 20 year or something?
Something
or
like that,
longer?
yeah.
I don't. It's
That's
been a
a
good
long
long
time.
time.
Well, and it's funny because we were all sort of talking about the obstacles that we have in the states where we're currently operating, and growing up and in my early 20s, people would always say, "Oh, Pennsylvania sucks." This is before liquor stores were open on Sundays. It's awful. Like, you can't buy. What do you mean you can't buy beer in a grocery store? What do you mean you can't buy beer?
Or you
at
have to buy a
Wawa
full
or-
case.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I got more into the beer world, I started realizing no, actually Pennsylvania is
cool,
really
yeah.
really good.
Despite the loss, it's really, really
exactly.
good. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we get beers from parts of the world and even from parts of the country.
Russian
that-
River. Russian River.
Yeah.
Thank you for
It's
stealing my
amazing.
perfect
Yeah.
example.
Yep.
Go ahead. It's yours.
This is how it normally goes. But I mean, we literally get beer from all over the world that you just can't get in either outside of that home country or just not in the concentration that we do here. And Russian River is always my example of even within the United States that, you know, we're one of the only markets east of the Mississippi that they distribute to. It's like
She
here in
learned
Orlando,
that
I think,
from me.
right?
It's
But
changed.
you-
It's
no,
changed a
I
lot
haven't.
over the last couple
But
of
you're
years,
welcome.
the distribution model. But that was the model. If you're a West Coast brewery, you know, you get all over California, and when you're done with California, hit Colorado, and then you go to Philly.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that
Yep.
was the distribution model for all these West Coast breweries.
But here's the other aspect, and it really goes to you guys, is that saison's a great base. From there, you can get such creativity,
Absolutely.
like the barrel aging, like the fruits, like all the things that you guys are doing. And that's one of the things about being in America, where there are no rules, right? You could call this a Hefeweizen.
Well, there apparently are
Right?
no
So-
rules. Look at
there's
where the
really
market's
neat
going.
stuff coming out of it, and because of the creativity in this area with beer, some of the saisons are just absolutely
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Definitely are.
So tell us about this beer.
Yeah.
This beer is really excellent.
So this beer was a collaboration with The Seed, a living, what is
A living beer project.
yeah.
Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
A
the
Living
Seed,
Beer
a Living
Project.
Beer
Yeah,
Project.
yeah.
So Sean and Amanda, they are a New Jersey-based couple and blendery. They're in the process of opening their own blendery. So Sean and Amanda came out and brewed the base beer of this. So it's called Some Kind of Potion, which Nate actually got the name from a song.
Yeah, it's an obscure singer-songwriter.
I like that.
Actually, well, I knew him in New Mexico.
Yeah, so it was base saison with Bloody Butcher corn, grown locally, and then from Castle Valley Mills, which is still a stone
18th
mill.
century mill.
Yeah, it's a really cool,
It's a cool
operation.
spot.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Not too far from here. I mean,
I think I passed it on the way over here.
It's
maybe.
If you get a chance,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
see it. It's amazing.
mileage-wise, it's in a straight line. It's probably
5-8 miles,
less than 10
something like that,
miles
yeah.
from here. And then local culinary grade lavender from Peace Valley Lavender Farm. What else was it?
Local wildflower honey.
That's right. Local wildflower honey. I totally forgot about that's the one.
And this is bottle conditioned with honey.
Excellent.
There was
So-
honey in the fermentation, and then again at
So
conditioning.
we split
Nice.
we split the batch. So some of it stayed clean, and I don't think we have any left of that draft wise. We didn't
doubt
we didn't
it.
bottle or can it. It was just all draft. And then some of it came down here and went into barrels, and we inoculated it with their culture, and our culture was already existing in those barrels. So this has been
It's a delightful
it
beer. I like
hung
it.
out
Really
in
good.
those barrels for probably
Yeah.
6
8,
months
yeah,
or
something like
so.
that.
It's so bright. Really, it's
Yeah.
like very, very
It's
bright.
super bright.
Like refreshing.
Yeah.
And really, and it's tart, it's acidic, but it's again, it's kind of like plays on that level where it's not too sour. It's very kind of dry.
You could drink a lot of it versus
Yeah.
you could.
And more bright, more
Exactly.
bright, like you
Yeah,
said.
it's
Like,
just very, very refreshing. I mean, you could sit outside and just crush this whole bottle by yourself, no problem.
and it's 5.5%,
Really,
5.7,
yeah,
something like that. So
It
it's
reminds
like
me
right
of
there.
a
Like what a
lemon
saison
stone.
was originally.
a
like-
lemon
Yeah.
scone. That's like
Yeah.
excellent
That's
A lemon
description.
stone is what that
Because it
reminds
has like a little biscuity thing
It
to
does.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and
I like that.
But it has that tartness of, but it's to me it's very lemony. It's
It has a
not-
lot of lemon. The,
Definitely.
the lavender is there, but it's not overwhelming too, which is usually,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
if
It
you
does
overdo
not
that.
take on
Complimentary
that soapy, perfumey.
No, it's definitely
lavender
not like that.
profile.
It's
Yeah,
a complimentary
so
note as
different.
opposed to like the focal point of the beer.
I
It
think
all
of
kinda
it
comes
more
together.
like if blueberry lemonade came from flowers, which is sort of nonsense. So I get blueberry from the lavender, and then the lemon from the culture, and then there's still a floral note behind it all that sort of ties it all together. So, you know, blueberry lemonade, if it were a flower, that's sort of the way I look at it. But like, yeah, it's drinkable. You can sit and contemplate it, or you can just drink it. It's like simple, easy drinking, refreshing, you know, just lovely, bubbly.
This is fantastic. Yeah.
It is
Thank you.
fantastic.
Carbonated
It's-
well. It's really, really good.
On the farm, I call this an August beer. When you're out baling
Oh,
hay and
yeah.
you want something
Yeah.
really
Okay.
refreshing
Yep.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
this is perfect for it.
That's
Sean
what saison
and Amanda
is, right?
Only
Exactly.
had
It should
the
be.
Part of the farm pay package.
the non-barrel aged. They only had the clean version of this. They haven't yet had this, but the day that Nate and I were writing the description for this beer, we FaceTimed Amanda. So
I saw that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Cool.
fun.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we've-
it was. It was really fun
Yeah.
to do that.
And we're trying to do that with
unfortunately wasn't-
other people as
wasn't able
well.
to do
Yeah,
it
that's
for the same
cool.
beer, but it was still fun
Yeah,
to
that's pretty cool.
to do that.
I like
yeah.
that.
They're
They're-
just such great people.
Sean and Amanda are great people, and they're very smart. And they're what they're going to open in their new space in New Jersey is going to be awesome. I'm really excited for them. It's going to be great. Yeah, we've done a couple collaborations with them at Kelly Green and with the Referend, and they're just so such amazing people to work with. They're so smart. I think they're doing really well.
Yeah.
They're going to do well. I'm excited for them to get open in
Yeah,
AC.
That's somebody I'm
Yeah.
excited. That's somebody I'm excited
Okay.
for as far as
Oh,
up
yeah.
and coming.
It's going to be they're going to be a big hit in New Jersey when they open, no doubt.